We are in Proverbs again. We're going to be in chapter 11 this morning. We're actually just going to stay right in chapter 11, verses 1 through 3. That is page 534 in your pew Bible. So if you don't have a Bible, the Bible in front of you in the pew is a great Bible to start with. It's the ESV, English Standard Version, if that means anything to you. But if you don't have a Bible, please take that one. So again, we're going to be in Proverbs chapter 11, verses 1 to 3. So when I was a young lad, yay, tall, roughly 5 years of age, I think it was around Halloween. And the reason I think it was around Halloween was because there were baskets at the stores that were by the checkout counter, and they were full of the many Reese's peanut butter cups. And I was going on errands with my mom. We went from store to store to store to store. It was pre-Amazon, so that was when you used to go to stores. And I didn't do it at the first store. I must have been building up my courage. But at the second or third store, I had really had enough of the Reese's peanut butter cups being at nose level. And I scoped things out. My mom was distracted as she was paying for whatever items we were getting. She was not paying for the Reese's peanut butter cup that I took out of the basket. But I took it, and I put it in my pocket, and we went out to the car, and she loaded me into the back seat, and she got into the front seat and drove away to our next errand location. And as we were en route, I enjoyed the fruits of my labor. I tasted, and it was good. And we got to the next store, and to my amazement and utter ecstatic joy, there was another basket. But this time, I was so enamored with the Reese's peanut butter cup. I know you understand what I'm saying. That I completely forgot about my mom. I can, looking back, in my 5-year-old little body, I can just see my eyes oozing with the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes over these miniature Reese's peanut butter cups. I didn't even pay attention to my mom this time, and I reached and I grabbed, and it was at that moment that I sensed the eyes of my mother. And I looked over, and instead of just nonchalantly, kind of leafing through, pretending I'm just browsing here, it was just a cataclysmic reaction of, my arm just jumped as I dropped the Reese's peanut butter. It was the ultimate guilty maneuver. And I could see in my mom's eyes the realization of the intent of my heart. And to this day, I cannot look at a Reese's peanut butter cup or hear a story about shoplifting without thinking of the disapproving look that I received from my mother. Now, as a 5-year-old, I was fully capable of presenting to the store merchants that I was absconding with their Reese's peanut butter cups, and fully capable of presenting to my mom a false version of myself, one that wasn't a thief, that wasn't scheming, that wasn't interested in satisfying the lusts and desires of my 5-year-old little flesh, which amounted to a miniature Reese's peanut butter cup. Not even the big cup. Not even the big cup with the Reese's pieces inside of it. Just a tiny little miniature Reese's peanut butter cup. But what I was demonstrating in my 5-year-old little body was the predilection that every one of us has to present a false version of ourself, to lack integrity, because the version of ourself is not one we're comfortable presenting to everyone. We present the false version of ourselves because we want that one to stay hidden. And so this morning we're going to take a look at Proverbs chapter 11, verses 1 to 3. Again, that's page 534 in your Pew Bible. And since it's so short, I feel like it's good for us to exercise a little bit of the Hebrew poetic structure. So we're going to read it twice. We're going to get a little bit of repetition out of it. So starting in verse 1 of chapter 11, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Let's read it one more time. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. The word of the Lord. Now, we see here painted for us by Solomon, the author of the Proverbs here, the marketplace, right? And we have presented here the payment operating system. Now, it's not an iPad, like we're growing more and more used to. It's not a credit card machine. It's not a cash register. It's not an abacus. It's balances. And so what's pictured here, now, just to back up a little bit, so in the ancient world, when you'd go to the marketplace, you would go to buy whatever it is you were buying, whatever goods, and they would weigh them out on the scales. And they used stones of agreed upon weight. Now, they didn't use pounds, but for the sake of our discussion this morning, we'll use pounds just because it's relatable. So they would have, for instance, a 1-pound stone, a 5-pound stone, and a 10, so on and so forth. And if you wanted to buy a pound of oregano, which sounds like a lot of oregano, but if you wanted to buy a pound of oregano, then you'd go and you'd tell the merchant, I'd like a pound of oregano, and he'd take his 1-pound stone and he'd put it on the scale. And then he'd pour on the other side of the scale your 1 pound of oregano, and then you'd pay the agreed upon price for that 1 pound of oregano or 5 pounds of flour, whatever you're getting. What's in view here is that the merchant has, in the privacy of the back room, altered his 1-pound stone. Now, whether that's hollowing out a portion and then somehow masking over that so that you don't notice the difference, or whether it's grinding just a slice off of one side so that instead of now 1 pound, you've got 0.9 pounds, or instead of 1 pound, you've got 3/4 of a pound. And so when he puts that on the scale and measures out your 1 pound of oregano, all of a sudden you're only getting 0.9 pounds, or 3/4 of a pound, but you're paying full price. And so he has presented to his customer a false reality. He's no longer showing all of who he is, but really only the sinful part. But nobody can detect that. So instead of receiving what they justly paid for, they've been cheated. And the scripture tells us that that's an abomination to the Lord. God hates it. We see in Proverbs 6, 7 other abominations that I think gives us a sense of how much God hates what we're seeing drawn out in front of us. He hates haughty eyes. He hates a lying tongue, and we certainly see a lying tongue in verse 1 here. He hates hands that shed innocent blood. He hates a heart that devises wicked plans. And this merchant is scheming his way to wicked plans. He hates feet that make haste to run to evil, and we see that here. He hates a false witness who breathes out lies, and he hates one who sows discord among his brothers. And we see so much of that here in verse 1. God hates the way this man is behaving, or this woman. But on the flip side, the merchant who puts the right weight out, who says, I don't have anything to hide because all that's contained in my 1 pound stone is 1 pound. If you want 1 pound of flour, you get 1 pound of flour. If you want 5 pounds of flour, you get 5 pounds of flour. And I don't think God is so much interested in the quantity of flour that we take home or the quantity of flour that we sell. He's interested in our ability to be completely open and honest about the person that we are. And if we aren't able to be completely open and honest, it's because we're crooked and treacherous and prideful. And we are not following his ways, but our own. Now, in this picture, we see contrasted a deceitful and an honest shopkeeper. But the insight that we gain opens our eyes to this person when no one is looking. Right? When no one's looking, he's hollowing out the stone. He's grinding it down. He's making it useful for his own purposes rather than for God's or for his customers. In the marketplace, they both look the same. 2 merchants peddling their goods, but behind closed doors, one is plotting deceit. He's altering his weights, and he's presenting himself as something other than what he truly is. The other is playing by the rules. He is the same in secret and out in the open. And we see all of who he is with nothing hidden. God abhors the one, and he delights in the other. Now, it's pretty easy for us to connect this story to modern day life. The easiest one is taxes. Right? We're all tempted every time we open TurboTax to say, I have no idea what any of this is talking about, and I'm just going to put whatever I possibly can to make this end as quickly as possible. Or at least that's my experience. But we're tempted, right, to list an expense that, maybe was an expense and maybe it wasn't. We're tempted to round a figure up or round a figure down. We're tempted to fudge the truth in one direction to make our income look less taxable because we have certain needs, right? And so we present a version of ourselves to the IRS. It's not really the whole version of us. The family man. He presents himself as one person to the guys, but when he gets home, he's absent and dejected, spends his time on the couch with Netflix. I speak with a lot of knowledge of this guy because I struggle with this one. I struggle to be a person of integrity, a person who is my whole self at home and here. The dutiful employee, the one who is a rock star when his boss is paying attention, but he's playing solitaire or watching the World Cup finals on his TV, on his computer screen when no one else is watching. The rock star mom, who looks like she has it all together, and inwardly she resents her kids or her husband or both of them. I think the one area where at least my generation struggles the most, my generation and maybe younger, maybe some of you older. Does anyone have one of these? I can get all kinds of stuff done on this. I can be so incredibly productive. I can drive anywhere I need to for a meeting where I can pray with people. But I can also take it into the bathroom. and I can pull anything that the world has to offer onto this thing. And I can be totally different with this, and no one will ever know. Ever. God hates that. It is an abomination to God when we present one version of ourselves as wholly productive or wholly loving to one's family or completely honest with the government, and in reality, there's a different reality. God hates that. But we all get that, right? We get that we're prone to live one way on Sunday and one way in front of our spouse and one way when we're leading a meeting at work, while living wholly different when we're alone in our car or alone in our office or alone in our house or hotel room or the confines of our own brains. We get that we're good at that. We have a natural predilection towards it. So what I'm interested in this morning is why? Why do we live the way we live, whether that be divergent realities that present a false version of our true selves, or a singular version of what's actually reality? Why do we do that? And I think that Solomon gives us an indication in the next two verses. He writes in 11 verse 2, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with the humble is wisdom. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them." Michael, throw that slide up there, if you have it. It'll come up at some point. So we see here in verse 1, we're given a picture of two individuals, of the merchant who presents a false sense of reality, and of the merchant who says, "This is all me. Everything I have, it's laid out in the open." And in verses 2 and 3, he shows us what's inside the heart of each of those individuals. Inside the heart of the false merchant, we see pride, we see crookedness, and we see treachery. There it is. All right. Inside the heart of the just and true merchant, we see humility and integrity and uprightness. Now, it's interesting that he starts with pride. When I look at this guy, I see a schemer or someone who's just trying to essentially enrich himself. I don't necessarily think of pride. And yet, what we have here is an individual who's putting his own needs above everyone else's. He puts his own need above everyone else's. And in so doing, he acts out of an abundance of pride as he presents to the world a different version. As he presents to one customer this version and to another customer this version, and so on and so forth. He is totally full of pride. And his means justify his ends. When I tell my sons, make a covenant with your eyes, not to look lustfully at a woman. Right? When I am the ultimate spiritual leader, family dad, and then I spend a couple minutes flipping through bikini pics on Instagram. I've never done that, but assuming I did, who am I serving there? Right? In one sense, on Instagram, I am wholly eating up the lust of my flesh and my eyes. And on the other side, I am latching strongly onto the boastful pride of life, right? I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want all that the sinful desires afford me, but I also want my sons to look at me and say, he's got it together. That is the guy I want to follow. We present a false version of who we are. We're incredibly and utterly prideful. But on the flip side, we have the humble guy. We have the one who's filled with humility. And what's with him? With him is wisdom. And I really love the contrast here of isolation and togetherness. Right? If you look at the beginning of verse 2, when pride comes, then comes disgrace. Something follows the other. But with the humble is wisdom. The one who's humble has something or someone with him. The integrity of the upright guides them. They're guided by something that's external to themselves. And yet, the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. They're all alone and they're left with nothing. And so here we see that the humble recognizes he's not ever alone. There is no back room. There is no when I'm seen and when I'm not. There is no when no one else is looking and when everyone is looking, because someone is always looking. And the someone that's always looking is our integrity. He is the one who guides us. Tim has told us before, actually probably mentioned just a couple weeks ago, that we get our word integrity from a Latin word that we then draw the English word integer, right? A whole number. It's not part of it, it's the whole thing. There's nothing divergent about it. It's not part of a number, it's the whole thing. All of it's there, it's complete. The Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, that's a mouthful, says this of the Hebrew word for integrity: it must express the resulting behavior of a person who consistently follows a course. I love that language. There's such utter freedom in it. Let me read it one more time. Integrity must express the resulting behavior of a person who consistently follows a course. He's on the same path all the time, always walking the same path. The one who's got integrity walks the same exact path all the time. And the only way to do that is to be the person of humility and integrity and uprightness. Because what we have on the other side, what's contrasted with that, and it's interesting, there are 8 different times in the Proverbs where the word integrity is used, and 5 of them contrast integrity with crookedness. And what's in view here is the person of integrity walks the same consistent straight line all the time. And we know from verse 2, right, because with the humble is wisdom, and we know from verse 3 that because those with integrity and uprightness, I'm losing it here, the integrity of the upright guides them, right, that there's some external aspect to it. It's not subjective truth, it's objective truth. They walk the same straight line. But the one who presents a false version of himself is always altering himself according to the needs of his current moment. And so he is at one point walking over here, and then back over here, and then he's over here. And his truth is subjective. It's all based on what he needs right then and there. And unfortunately, I know that I myself, and I suspect that I'm not the only one, I start out on Sunday walking that straight path. And then on Monday, there's some reason that I got to get over here. Because there's something inside of me. There's pride and there's crookedness and there's treachery that I can't let anybody see what's really in here. So I gotta keep walking that crooked path for a while, and eventually, I can find my way back, and then I'll walk that straight one. It's so easy for me to find the crooked path because there's none righteous, not even one. There's none who seeks after God. And it's the one who's able to present his whole self, right? The one who understands, I am who you say I am, because he's humble and he realizes that he's been made new and been made able to walk a straight path, because otherwise we're never able to walk that straight path. So my question for you this morning is, how have you been doing this last week in your consistency? How have you been doing this last week in your integrity? Have you held tightly to the standard of our integrity? Or have you presented a false version of yourself? Have you walked a crooked path? I'm struck by that right column. And contained in there is the gospel. Right? We serve a God who is just, who demands justice, and because he is humble, he has made a way for us through his Son to deal with our sin. And because he is full of integrity, because he never, ever, ever, ever changes. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is faithful. And he is wholly deserving of our faith and our trust and our dependence in him to give us his righteousness. See, the simplicity of the Christian life is that our job is to just image bear. We were created to be image bearers. We were supposed to reflect the character of God to the world. And the one who is full of integrity, who is always exactly the same, who we always get the whole part of, is the one who desires to live in us and help us be whole. To not be the one who does things that God hates. To not be two-faced and different, depending on the circumstances, but to know this here is the way. Walk in it. Walk in it. Will you pray with me? Father, you are the ultimate reality. You are the one who has no reason for shame or fear, who can present himself utterly holy and blameless and righteous. And God, we are just like our ancestors, naked and shameful and needing to cover ourselves. And I am grateful that you have washed us and cleansed us and have allowed us the ability to reflect your image by the power of your Holy Spirit inside of us. You have given us of your righteousness and deemed us clean and holy. And so, God, I pray that as Paul says, that just as we received Christ, that we would walk in him. God, help us to walk by the power of the Spirit in humility and in integrity and in uprightness. I pray these things through the Son and by the Spirit.